Da Taf Tzadik Zayin Amud Beis by the Mishnah Hoya Kaire Baseifer. Zok the Mishnah Hoya Kaire Baseifer. Person's reading from a sefer. So as Rashi explains, the sefer we're talking about over here is a scroll. And Rashi says, then all the Sfarim were made like a sefer Torah. So he's reading from a scroll. V'niz galgal hasefer miyodei, and the scroll partially rolled down. So he's still holding it in his hands, but a chelik of it rolled down. So where is this person? Again, he's sitting on a skupa, on a threshold, and it rolls down into the street. You can roll it back up to yourself. But you're not sitting on a threshold. If you're sitting on a rooftop, and part of the scroll rolls down into the street, if it rolled down, but it's above 10 tfachim to the Rishus Harabim, you can roll it back up to yourself. Above 10 tfachim, it's not a Rishus Harabim. Mishigia lasarat tfachim. However, if it did roll down close enough to the floor, it's within 10 tfachim to the Rishus Harabim, hoiv chayal aksav, you're not allowed to roll it back up. You just have to turn it upside down in order for it not to be embarrassed over there.
He's up on the roof, he's supposed to somehow bend over and measure if it's down 10
You have to be able to see, yeah. You have to be able to estimate. Yeah. So that's, one case. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it goes even further. If it rolled down from the roof and it didn't hit the floor, it's away from the floor, even on machat, a needle, on the bachis geiris hachut, even a thread from the floor, you could still roll it back up to yourself. It didn't hit the floor yet. Hanging down, he's still holding on to it. In all these cases in the Mishnah, he's still holding on to one end in his hands. Rab Shimon says, even if it will roll down and it hit the floor itself, you're allowed to roll it back up to yourself. There are no gzeiris midrabanan in a situation where there's kisvei HaKodesh, where there's a sefer that's going to be embarrassed here. And therefore what Rab Shimon is saying is, you're still holding on to it. Minat Torah, there's no malach in there. The only thing would be a gzeirim midrabanan, that if I allow a person to roll it back up when he's holding on to it, he might come to pick it up from the Rishus Harabim even when he let go. Says Rab Shimon, if the whole thing would be a gzeirim midrabanan, if it's kisvei HaKodesh, there's no gzeirim midrabanan. If it would be a scroll from anything else that's not kisvei HaKodesh, he would agree to the gzeiris. But not in a case where it's kisvei HaKodesh. So the Gemara starts with the first chelik of the Mishnah. If you read this Mishnah, it looks like there's a contradiction here. The Gemara will explain. Hi iskupa. When we talk over here about the person that was sitting on a threshold, hey chidami, what is the status of this threshold? Are we talking about a threshold that's a Rishus HaYachid? What are the measurements of Rishus HaYachid? A threshold that's 10 tfachim tall and 4 tfachim wide. So if the threshold is wide enough and tall enough and it's a Rishus HaYachid, V'kama Rishus Harabim, and in front of this threshold you have a Rishus Harabim. Okay, so what happened? It rolled down from a Rishus HaYachid into a Rishus Harabim. V'loi gazrinan dilme nafol v'asi lesuye. And we're not going to be geyser that it might fall out of his hands completely, and he might pick it up out of the Rishus Harabim. Okay, so that's the gzeira that this whole Mishnah is based on. That if you allow a person to roll it up while he still has one end in his hands, he might come to pick it up from the Rishus Harabim even after it dropped out of his hands. So if in the first part of the Mishnah, the threshold is a Rishus HaYachid, and we're not geyser that it's going to fall out of its hands and he's going to come to pick it up, so why aren't we geyser? Mani, who is the first section of the Mishnah going according to that says that we don't make this gzeira? Rab Shimoni follows what Rab Shimon said in the end of the Mishnah, the Omar, called Dova Shuhu Mishum Shvus. Anytime where you have a Isser which is just a Gzeira Midrabanan, Ein Oimid Bifnei Kisvei HaKodesh. We don't apply this Gzeira because it's Kisvei HaKodesh, it's a holy scroll. If so, fragt the Gemara, Eim Sefer, what was the next thing it said in the Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda says, Afil Eim Mesulik Min Aretz Elam Lo Yachot. If the scroll that rolled down from the rooftop did not yet land on the floor, it's separated from the floor, even a tiny drop, you're allowed to roll it back up to yourself. So what do you see? What's Rabbi Yehuda saying? Only if it didn't hit the floor, then you're allowed to roll it back up to yourself. If it hit the ground, you're not allowed to. Why not? Because there's a gzeira, that even though you're still holding it in your hands, but there's a gzeira that if it falls completely, you might pick it up as well. Fragt the Gemara, And then what does the Mishnah conclude after that? Rab Shimon oimah afilu ba'aretz atzma, even if it hit the ground, goyla lo yatzla. You can roll it back up to yourself. If so, what does it come out? Reisha v'seifa Rab Shimon. The beginning of the Mishnah in the case of the threshold is Rab Shimon, and the seifa of the Mishnah mentions Rab Shimon again, and Mitzias Rab Yehuda. And the middle case is who? Rab Yehuda, that as long as it didn't hit the floor, that's when I'm not geyser. But if it did hit the floor, I am geyser. So what's going on over here? What's the pshat in the Mishnah? Rav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda says, yeah, you're right. Staka in, yeah. Reisha v'seifer Rab Shimon. The beginning of the Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah is Rab Shimon. Mitzias Rab Yehuda, and the middle case is according to Rab Yehuda. That's taka how you have to learn the Mishnah. Okay, which is a little bit of a daichik. You mind making a place from over here? There should be another Gemara there inside the shelf. Zok the Gemara. Over here, there's more place over here. Zok the Gemara, another pshat. Rabba Omar. Rabba says, no, you don't have to make this daichik that the beginning of the Mishnah is Rab Shimon. The pshat over here is Hacha be'askupa hanidreses askinon. In the reisha of the Mishnah, we're not talking about a rooftop. In the reisha of the Mishnah, we're talking about a threshold. People are constantly walking out, in and out of the house. They're passing through this threshold. Because the Kisvei HaKodesh are going to be trampled on, people walking in and out. Over here, the Rabbanan were makel and said that although there should be a gzeira, that a person might come to pick it up from the Rishus HaRabim, even the Rabbanan were made that we're not going to make this gzeira. Okay, so the Gemara now is saying a new pshat. There's a difference if it's a threshold or if it's a rooftop. Something that rolled down from a rooftop, Rab Shimon says they weren't geyser. Mashenken, a threshold, usually the Rabbanan disagree with Rab Shimon and say there is a gzeira. Even if you're still holding it in your hand, there's a gzeira that you might pick it up from the Rishus HaRabim when you dropped it. But by a threshold, they did not make the gzeira. There, everybody agrees because it's a bizayin of Kisvei HaKodesh. That's a place that people walk in and out. Frak the Gemara on Rabba's pshat. If this is the pshat, Eisvi Abaya. Abaya brings a braisa. What does it say in the braisa? Toich daled ames. If it fell to the ground and it fell within daled ames, goyle lo yatzle. You could roll it back up to yourself. Chutz le daled ames. But if it rolled out of daled ames, so then hoiv chayal aksav. Then turn it over. You're not allowed to roll it back up to yourself. Frak the Gemara. What difference does it make if it's within daled ames or out of daled ames? If you're saying that as long as if you're on a threshold, and because people walk there, you don't want them to trample over this Kisvei HaKodesh, mali toich dal damas, mali chutz la'arbamas. What difference does it make how far out it rolled? In dal damas, out of dal damas. He is still holding on to it in the Rishus HaYachid. If he's still holding on to it in the Rishus HaYachid, there's no Isam and Atayra to pick it up. Even if it rolled out of the dal damas, it would only be a gzeirim mit Rabbanan because it might drop out of his hands. But didn't we just say that on a skupa we don't make such a gzeira because people are going to trample over it? So what difference does it make if it's within dal damas, out of dal damas? There's no gzeira here. Answers the Gemara. So Abaye gives another pshat, a third pshat in the Mishnah. Omar Abaye hacha be'iskupa karmelis askinon. This skupa, this threshold is not 10 tvachim tall. It's lower than that. It's only a karmelis. Or Rishus HaRabim Eiveres Lefanau, and then there's a Rishus HaRabim in front of it. So from the karmelis to the Rishus HaRabim is lechatchila. The whole thing is asam d'Rabbanan. Even if it's totally dropped, even if he's not holding on to it, to pick it up and bring it back into the karmelis is midrabanan. So therefore, I say as follows: Toich dal dames. If it fell within dal dames, the naful maisile, even if it would totally fall out of his hands, and he would pick it up, lo yasile de chiyav chatas. There's no chiv chatas. He's bringing it from Rishus HaRabim into a karmelis. So shara le Rabbanan. The Rabbanan allow him to bring it up if he's still holding on to it. Because even if he would drop it, there's no isim in the Rabbanan here. There's no isim in atayra, that is. It's a karmelis. Chutz la arba ames. But if it rolled out of 4 ames, the I maisile. If he would drop it and then he would bring it, asi lidei chiv chatas. Then there is a chiv chatas. Lo shara le Rabbanan. So over here there's a gzeira and the Rabbanan did not allow. So what Abaye is saying is, Abaye disagrees with Rabbah. Abaye is saying there's no special status to a threshold because it's a place that people walk and they shouldn't come to trample over it. No, there's no such a thing. The difference is there a place where there's a chash you'll come to Issa Dairaisa or not? If it rolled out of Dal Damas, you'll come to Issa Dairaisa. If it did not roll Dal Damas, so you're not going to come to Issa Dairaisa. Frag the Gemara, if that's the issue over here, that there is actually a gzeira, even in a threshold, that you might come to Issa Dairaisa, Toich daladamis, even if it rolled out of your hands, within daladamis, there should also be a gzeira. Nami nigzar. Dilme ma'ayel mirishus harabim l'rishus hayachid. That you might bring it in from the rishus harabim into the rishus hayachid. What's a threshold? A threshold is right in front of the house. There's still a gzeira that the person is going to pick it up from the rishus harabim if he drops it. He's going to pick it up from the rishus harabim. What is he going to do with it? He's going to bring it inside his house. Why shouldn't we be geyser that even though the Carmelis itself is a Carmelis, but he's going to bring it all the way into his house? And if you're going to answer, no, that's not a problem. There's no Isam and Atayra in this. Why not? Kivin the Mafsikis Carmelis, less lumba. Since there's a break of the Carmelis, there's no issue. He's going to be carrying from the Rishus Harabim into the Carmelis, and then from the Carmelis into his house. So there's no Isam and Atayra. Says the Gemara, that's not true. If you carry an object in the Rishus Harabim, Dal Rames, that's the Isam and Atayra of carrying Dal Rames, vehevidoi derech olav. You picked it up on the ground, you lifted it up above 10 tfachim, and which is usually when a person carries something, if you're carrying it like this, you're going to be carrying it higher than 10 tfachim. And then the whole length, he went higher than 10 tfachim. Higher than 10 tfachim is not a Rishus Harabim. And then you placed it back down in a place after four amis, that is. After 4 amis, you placed it back down. Chayiv. You're going to be chayiv. So what do we see? If you pick it up in one place, and then the havara, the whole space that you walked, it was higher than 10 tfachim, and then you put it back down, you're chayiv. So the same thing applies over here. If you would pick something up in the Rishus Harabim, if this scroll rolls out of your hand, and you picked it up in the Rishus Harabim, you went through the Carmelis, and then you brought it into your house, you would be chayiv. So why aren't we geyser that would happen? That if the scroll rolls out of his hand, he might pick it up and bring it into his house. Answers the Gemara, 2 answers. One answer is we're talking about a very extended threshold. It's not a threshold that's like a tiny little place before the house. It's an extended threshold. So therefore he has a place where to put it down right over there. We're not chayshish, he's going to bring it into the house. And adahachi vahachi, he brings it onto his threshold and he has to walk all the way into his house. It's a long threshold. Mitka. He'll remember not to bring it into his house. That's one shot. A second shot. No, we're not talking about an extended threshold. Stam kisvi hakaydish iyuni ma'ayni buhu o manach lahu. Kisvi hakaydish, the person is going to pick it up, he's going to look inside to read it. And if he's going to look inside to read it, he's going to put it down right over there. He's not going to bring it into his house. So we're not chayshish, he's going to carry it into his house. Frag the Gemara, 1 second. Now that you're telling me that the person is going to pick up this Kisvei HaKodesh and he's going to read it, V'leichish dilme ma'ayel behu b'rishus harabim v'ayeluhu behediyel rishus hayachid. You're saying that the nature of a person is when you pick up a scroll, Kisvei HaKodesh, you want to read something that it says inside of it. So maybe he's not going to read when he's going to be in the skupa, maybe he's going to pick it up in the rishus harabim and he's going to read it in the rishus harabim and then he's going to walk straight into his house. V'ayeluhu behediyel rishus hayachid, and he'll go straight into his house. How do you know he's going to read it in the askupa, in the threshold, which is a Carmelis, and put it down there? Maybe he's going to read it in the Rishus Harabim and take it straight into his house. Answers the Gemara, Ha Mani Ben Azai. So we have to say that our mission here goes according to Ben Azai. The Omar, we learned this in Shabbos a long time ago. Ben Azai says, Mahalech ka'oimid dami. When a person walks, it's the same like when a person stops. Meaning, just like when a person stops in one place, he's making a hanocha. He's putting it down there. His feet are in one place and he stopped. So the same thing when a person walks, what happens when a person walks? You always have one foot on the ground. So every step you're taking, there's an akira and there's a hanocha. You're picking up your foot and you're putting down your foot. So if the person is going from the Rishus Harabim into the Carmelis, which is the threshold, and then into his house, he walked through the threshold, it's like he made a hanocha on the Carmelis. He didn't just pass through, but he made a hanocha by walking through it and then going into his house, so there's no isam anatayra, because mahalach is ka'oimid dami. Frag the Gemara, but there's still another chashash. V'dilme zorik lahu mizrak. Shouldn't we be chayshish that maybe he's going to pick it up in the Rishus Harabim and then throw it into his house through the threshold, through the Carmelis, and he's not going to be walking through at all. So he's going to be over Isam and Atayra. The Omer Rabbi Yechanan said, Maide ben Azai bezayrik. Rabbi Azai is Maide that if you throw from a Rishus Harabim to a Rishus Hayachid through a Carmelis, but you threw it through, you didn't walk through, in such a case, for sure, it's not considered as if it stopped in the Carmelis, it just flew through, so you're going to be over the Isser. That's the Gemara. Amar Avache Bar Ave Zoisei Meres Ein Mizarkin Kisvei HaKodesh. From here we see we're not concerned about such a thing, that a person is going to throw a Kisvei HaKodesh into his house. We're not chayshish for that. He's going to treat it with respect. He's going to walk in with it. That we would be chayshish. And then there's no problem because he's going through the Carmelis. To throw it, we're not chayshish for that. So what was the next thing it said in the Mishnah? So what do? You turn a scroll upside down, that it shouldn't get to the bizayin. Fragt the Gemara, Mishari, are you allowed to turn a scroll upside down? Va'atanya, it says in the Braise, Kaisvei, Svarim, Tfilin, Mezuzis. The people that write Svarim, they write Tfilin or Mezuzis, Lo yitidu len lafacha yiriya al panel. You're not supposed to turn, but you're writing, if they're writing it, they have to come back afterwards and they have to go away. So you're not allowed to turn it upside down. Elapaitis aleh sabeged. You should just cover it with the garment. And when you walk out from a room and you're leaving, you're not supposed to leave a sefer open. Allah and Shulchan Aruch, you're supposed to cover it. You cover it, but not turn it upside down. So why are we turning it over here upside down? And it says the Gemara, Hasa Mefshe. Over there, it's possible. You can take a garment and put it on top. Hacha lo yefshe. Over here, it's impossible. He doesn't have a garment. Or Taisus actually says, even if he has a garment, he's not allowed to, because it's rolled down into the Reshus HaRabim. So you can't throw a garment over it to cover it, to throw the garment down into the Reshus HaRabim. And v'lo yapech, so if you're not going to turn it upside down, ikki bizayin kisvei HaKodesh tfei. So true, turning a kisvei HaKodesh upside down is a bizayin. As Rashi says, the reason is because when you turn a kisvei HaKodesh upside down, so there's avok, is that what Rashi says over there? The dust that comes onto the oisius, yeah. So that's a bizayin, to turn kisvei HaKodesh upside down. But in this case, to leave it exposed, hanging into the Reshus HaRabim is a bigger bizayin. So therefore in this case, there's no other choice, so you could turn it upside down. So this is the Gemara, it's also brought in Halachas. This is the source that if you're leaving a room, you're leaving a sefer, you should cover it with something, or close it or cover it, not turn it upside down. You see sometimes people turn it upside down. You're not supposed to turn the sefer upside down. That's also a bizayin. So now the Gemara is going to focus more on this, on the what? Okay, no, but I believe it's brought in Paiskim that you shouldn't turn it upside down. Yeah. So the next chelik of the Mishnah was speaking about when it rolled down from the roof. What did it say in the Mishnah? If it didn't hit the floor, so then it's still an issue. If it went within 10 tvachim to the ground, the Mishnah says. If it rolled down, if it was within 10 tvachim to the ground, then it's an issue. Okay? And Rabbi Yehuda said, no, only if it hit the ground, then it's an issue. So the Gemara is going to start with the first chelik here. It said, V'afrek the Gemara, how could you say that if it rolled down and it didn't hit the ground, that there's an issue in pulling it back up? V'ha loy noch. It didn't hit the ground yet. What's the Gemara asking? There's no reason to be geyser at all, because the person on his end is still holding on to it. On the other end, it didn't even hit the ground yet. The whole thing, l'chatchila, is a gzeira. If it hit the ground, and then you would let go of it, there's a gzeira that you might pick it up from the ground. But over here, Sai didn't hit the ground yet, and Sai on the other hand, you're holding on to it. So why did Chazal make any gzeira in such a case? Amar Rave says, Rave, you're right, it didn't hit the ground, but what we're talking about over here is b'kaisel mishupa. It's coming down from a rooftop, and it rolled down, and the roof of the wall of the house is mishupa, it's diagonal. There's a part of the house that, a sloped wall that sticks out, a chelik of it sticks out into the Reshus HaRabim, and it did land. It didn't land on the ground, but it landed on this wall that sticks out from the house. Okay, so the pshat over here in the Gemara is that piece of the wall that sticks out from the house is part of the Reshus HaRabim. The people of the Reshus HaRabim use it, they put their packages on it, the people of the Reshus HaRabim use it, so therefore it landed on that place in the wall, so it's like it landed in the Reshus HaRabim. Okay, we once learned about this in Masechta Shabbos, that when you have areas in the Reshus HaRabim that are 9 tvachim tall, and people position their packages in that area, Omud Tes, that it's considered to be part of the Reshus HaRabim. So here as well, this chelik of the wall that was sticking out, that it landed on, is part of the Reshus HaRabim. So that's why you're not allowed to bring it up. The gzeira applies there. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, so what are you saying? What's the Mishnah talking about? That it did land. Didn't land on the floor, but it landed on this piece of the wall that's sticking out. What does it say after this? If it's removed from the ground, even a drop, you could roll it back up. It didn't land yet. Fragt the Gemara, but now you're saying it didn't land on the ground, but it landed on the wall, which is also part of the Rishus HaRabim. Answers the Gemara, you're right. According to this pshat, we're going to have to say that there's something missing here in the Mishnah, and this is how you have to read the Mishnah. When is there a gzeira if it rolled down into 10 tfachim of the Rishus HaRabim, is if it landed not on the ground, but at least it landed on the kaisel meshupah, on this part of the wall. But if you don't have this slanted wall, and it's still dangling in the air, it didn't land at all, Lamaila mishloisha, as long as it's above 3 tfachim from the ground, so it's not lava to the ground, you're allowed to roll it back up to yourself. There's no gzeira. Lamata mishloisha, if it rolled down and it's dangling in the air, but it's within 3 tfachim to the ground, so then there's the gzeira, and you're not allowed to pull it back up. You have to leave it there and turn it over on the ksav.
I never learned this shleisha in the Mishnah.
Correct. So that's on the Anachanami. So the Gemara is adding this now, another detail over here, that it depends if it's within 3 tfachim to the ground or not. Yeah. And on that, now you have to take out the 2 dots that you have over here. It's a continuation. On that, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, afila einem esulik min haaretz v'chulu, even if it's removed from the ground, just a tiny drop, there's no gzeira. In other words, the machlokes of the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda is whether we apply the concept of lavud here. Tanakama says once it's within 3 tfachim of the ground, it's as if it's already landed. So the gzeira that you might pick it up even after you drop it out of your hands applies. Rabbi Yehuda says no, there's no lavud here. If it's munach, if it actually landed on the ground of the Rishus HaRabim, then you're not allowed to bring it up. But if it didn't land yet, there's no lavud over here. The be'inon hanocha al gabe mashahu. Only if it actually landed on something, then there's a gzeira that you might come to pick it up. Dr. Gemara, so now that we explained that this is the machlokes here, whether I say lavud legabe the hanocha of the malach of hitzah or not, when you throw something and it didn't yet land. So even before landing, is it as if it landed or not? So if that's what the machlokes is based on, so now Rava said, we learned this in Masechta Shabbos. What did Rava say? Even if something is flying into a rishus, it did not land, but it's flying within 3 tfachim to the ground, it's not considered to be a hanocha unless it actually lands. If you remember, we learned this in Masechta Shabbos, there was a very interesting shitta there of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, if you throw something from the Rishus HaRabim to another Rishus HaRabim, and in between, it flew through a Rishus HaYachid, Rabbi Akiva holds the very fact that it flies through a Rishus HaYachid, kluta kemi shehuncha. The fact that it flew through the ear space, it's as if it's been absorbed into that place, as if it landed there. That's what Rabbi Akiva holds. On that, Rava said, Rabbanan disagree with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbanan say no, just because it went through the ear space, it's not as if it landed there. And Rava explains, according to the Rabbanan, even if it flies through a Rishus HaYachid and you throw it very low and it's very close to the ground, but if it didn't land, if there's no hanocha b'poil, you're not over on the malach of hitzah. It has to actually land. Even though there's a concept of lavud, but that doesn't apply to the hanocha of the malach of hitzah. It has to actually land to be over the iser. So if so, Rava said that the hanocha has to be on the ground, and we don't apply lavud here. Leime ketanoi omra l'shmaite. Now, based on the pshat that we said before, it's going to come out that what Rava said is dependent on a machlokes tanoim. Here we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama are arguing with this scroll that rolled down within 3 tfachim of the Rishus HaRabim, and they're arguing if there's a gzeira, if you can pull it back up or not. So Rava said something, and it's really a machlokes tanoim here. Says the Gemara, you're right, we're going to have to change a little bit what we said before. Ella, really, kol Rabbi Yehuda. The entire Mishnah is all Rabbi Yehuda speaking. There's no machlokes here. And going back to what we said before, there's something missing in the Mishnah, but v'hachi katani. This is how you have to read the Mishnah. If it landed on a slanted wall, so then, even if it didn't land on the ground yet, you're not allowed to pull it back up. But if there is no slanted wall there, if it landed within 3 tfachim, you're allowed to roll it up to yourself. Why should Rabbi Yehuda oime? Since Rabbi Yehuda said, even if it's removed from the ground, a tiny drop, Goyleloi etzloi, you can roll it back up to yourself. My time the be'inon hanocha al gabe mashahu. For the malacha of haitzah, we don't apply lavud. The malacha of haitzah is only if it actually landed on something. So the only thing the Gemara just changed now from what it said before is the Gemara removes the machlokes that we said. That there's a machlokes if it's within 3 tvachim to the ground and not within 3 tvachim to the ground. The Gemara removes that. It's all Rabbi Yehuda speaking, and Rabbi Yehuda is saying that only if it was nachal gabi mashahu, so then there's the gzeira midrabanan that you might let go of it and pick it up from the ground. But if it was not yet nachal gabi mashahu, there's no gzeira. And actually, like you pointed out before, in our Mishnah, it doesn't say anything about within shleish tvachim. So there's no reason for the Gemara really to add that. So it's all one opinion. Okay, that's the end of this inyan, b'negeh to the kisvei HaKodesh that rolled out of a person's hand. Zok Mishnah, ziz shelifnei chaloin. You have a window, and in front of your window you have a ledge that's sticking out over the street, over the Rishus HaRabim. Noisnin olav, so you can place things onto the ledge, v'noitla mimenu, and you can take things from your ledge. B'Shabbos and Shabbos, this ledge is tall 10 tfachim, as the Gemara will explain. It's tall 10 tfachim off the ground, and it's also 4 by 4 tfachim wide. It's an extension of your Rishus HaYachid, so there's no problem to take anything from your house and put it on the ledge, or bring something from the ledge into your house. It's like the Gemara, haiz is, so this ledge that we're talking about over here, the mapik lehecha, it's extending outward to where? If it's protruding into the Rishus HaRabim, shouldn't we be afraid? Shouldn't we be afraid if you put something onto this ledge, it might fall off the ledge and fall into the Rishus HaRabim, and you might come to pick it up from the Rishus HaRabim? So the Gemara holds that that's a very probable thing to happen. So there should be such a gzeira. So how are you allowed to put something on this ledge that's protruding into the Rishus HaRabim? We'll have to say that we're talking about a ledge that's sticking out of your house, but into a Rishus HaYachid. Like most houses, they have a courtyard in front, so it's not sticking out into the Rishus HaRabim. Pshita, if so, it should be obvious that you're allowed to put something on the ledge. What would be the issue? What's the concern? And for the Gemara, Amar Abaye, La'olam, the Mapik, L'Rishus HaRabim. We're talking about a ledge that is hanging over into the Rishus HaRabim. My noisnin Allah of the Ketani, when it says that you can place things onto the sledge, that it's allowed. Kalim hanish barim. We're talking about placing kalim, dishes, or whatever it is, that if it falls into the Rishus HaRabim, it's going to break. So there's no chash that you're going to come and pick it up. But if it would be regular kalim on such a ledge that's sticking out into the Rishus HaRabim, you're not allowed to put it there because it might fall down and you might come to pick it up. We're talking about kalim hanish barim.
If it's a Rishus HaYachid, maybe they don't have a Eiruvin over there.
Erev Chatzeris.
Yeah, so maybe you can bring it in.
Okay. So the Gemara says it's a whole issa is only with the Rabbanon. So it's like a gzeira l'gzeira. The Gemara says it's pashut, there's no such gzeira. So the Gemara Tanya Nami Yachi, we learned in the Braisa, it says this clearly. Ziz shalifnei achalain, a ledge that's sticking out of a window, ayotzil Rishus HaRabim, and it hangs over into the Rishus HaRabim. Nice olive, what could you put on it? Kairis, bowls, kaisis, cups, kitainis, small cups, tzloichias, plates. But these are all things that are made from glassware or earthenware, things that if they fall, they're going to break. Mishtamish, then the Braisa says, Mishtamish b'chol ha'kaisel, any ledge that you have anywhere in the wall, you can use the ledge as much as you want, ad asara tachtainen, as long as this ledge is above 10 tfachim of the Rishus HaRabim. If the ledge is hanging out below 10 tfachim, so then it's part of the Rishus HaRabim. Then the Braisa says something else. V'im yesh ziz echad lemata mimenu. What if you have 2 ledges? A ledge, and then above it another ledge. 2 ledges, one on top of the other. So then, mishtamish boy u be'elyoin ein mishtamish boy. You can use the lower ledge, and you cannot use the top ledge. Elo keneget chaloina. You could only use the top ledge, which is right near your window. See if they have a picture for this over here. You have 2 ledges, one on top of the other. The lower ledge you can use. The top ledge you could only use what's near your window. So you can look and picture Taf Kufayin Dalit, Taf Kufayin Hey. So you have ledges over here, you have 1 ledge. But if you have 2 ledges, so the lower ledge you can use as much as you want. The top ledge you could only use near your window. So the Gemara now is going to ask him this. Why shouldn't you be able to use the ledge? As long as it's 10 tfachim above the Rishus HaRabim, what difference does it make? Frek the Gemara, Hi ziz hey chidami. When we're talking over here about these two ledges, what are we talking about? If the ledge that's sticking out does not have 4 tfachim in it, the width of 4 tfachim, makim peturhu. This is not even a Reshus HaYachid. It doesn't have the minimum space to make it the part of the Reshus HaYachid. It's a makim petur. And if so, even that part of the ledge that's right near your window, you shouldn't use it either, because as soon as you go and put something out on the ledge, it's very likely that it's right away going to fall down. It has so little space, it's going to fall down. If it does have the space of 4 tfachim, you should be allowed to, didn't it say in the Braise right before, a ledge sticking out of your wall, anywhere in the wall you could use it as long as it's above 10 tfachim from the ground. What's the difference if you have 2 ledges, one on top of the other? What's the problem? Answers the Gemara, Omar Abaye, the case over here is Tachtoin, the Isbe Arba. The 2 ledges, the lower ledge has the width of 4 tfachim. The Elyoin less be'arba. The higher ledge is not 4 tfachim wide. It's a narrower ledge. The Chaloinoi mashlimasai ledalid. But the ledge is built flush to the window, and together with the window, it does have a space of 4 tfachim. So therefore, Keneged Chaloin, there the ledge that's near the window, the part of the ledge that's together with the window, mishtamish, that you could use the Chayre Chaloinu, because it's like it's together. It goes together with the window, so you have enough space of 4 tfachim, and you're not afraid it's going to fall into the Reshus HaRabim. The high gise, but the part of the ledge that sticks out on both sides that you can't use, Osir, because over there it's not wide enough and it's going to fall into the Reshus HaRabim. Take a look in the picture, you'll see over here that it's a very, very narrow ledge. So if you put something on this ledge, it's very likely it's going to right away fall into the Reshus HaRabim. But if that ledge is sticking out any further from the window, that's the issue. But near the window itself, because it's flush with the window itself, so therefore there's enough space in it that if you put something down on it, it's not going to fall into the Reshus HaRabim. Okay, you see it over here? How it is? Taf Kufayin Hey. Those are the ledges here. Okay, Adkan.